All right, Joe, let's start with Hideki Matsuyama and at the Firestone. And this is a guy that 3 years ago actually 4 years ago, watched Tiger Woods shoot a 61, played alongside of him, and couldn't believe that somebody could shoot 61 at this course, although it's happened before. Sergio's done it, and other guys have done it. And then he goes out on Sunday and shoots a 61 of himself. So obviously he now has proven he can do it too.
Yeah, on a course like that at Firestone, with that beastly length near 7,400 yards, the conditions were a little more favorable on Sunday. No question, the scores were a lot lower. The wind was more favorable from the right direction. But no matter what, I mean, he was low by 5 shots for the day or 4 shots for the day, and just absolutely lapped the field. Ended up beating Zach by 5 shots, and I'm not surprised to see a guy like Hideki do it because he's a guy who is a steady putter, but he's an incredible ball striker. So the ball striking is usually there, and when the putter actually heats up, he can put together rounds like this. And it was no surprise. He was very solid the first 3 days, had 67s on Friday and Saturday, and then put this together on Sunday and basically made everything. So hats off to him, no question.
And everyone's talking about the year that Jordan Spieth is having, and of course we'll get to the fact that Jordan has the chance to become the youngest to finish off the career Grand Slam. But Hideki's having a pretty good year too. He's matched Jordan now with 3 wins on tour this year.
Yeah, 3 wins. Certainly doesn't have the major yet. Obviously that's what everybody be talking about this week going into PGA, but he's won some marquee tournaments. I mean, he doesn't have that many victories yet in his career, but just winning the WGC here at Firestone, he won the Memorial. He has some big wins to his credit, and that's going to be something that just kind of gets him that much more ready to win that first major, builds that confidence. Everybody else in the field knows that it's probably just a matter of time until Hideki wins one. The Japanese media certainly would love it, I'll tell you that. From everything that I've seen, the swarms are just increasing. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on him this week, but the shape that his game is in, he will be a factor. There's no question.
So do you like a guy that's coming off a dominant performance like that, heading into a major right the week before, or do you think that maybe that's overblown sometimes?
It kind of depends on the player. Like a couple years ago, Rory coming into the PGA, wins Firestone easily, goes into the PGA at Valhalla, having won the British Open, having won at Firestone, and then blew away the field at Valhalla and won the PGA also. So it can work to your favor because you build that momentum where you just keep winning. But there's also been a lot of cases in the past where, even Tiger, who won at Firestone a bunch of times, would not always carry that momentum forward. There's been certainly other examples, too, where it's just that 1 week in a bottle, then you get to the PGA, it's a different course, it's a different setting. It can actually work against you because there's so much attention and pressure on you from winning the week before. But for a guy like Hideki, who's been solid all season and had that runner-up at the U.S. Open, was a factor at both the Masters and the British, at least early on the weekend. Going into the PGA next week with this momentum, I certainly expect him to play really well. So I don't think, even with that extra attention and pressure, I'm not sure it's really going to sidetrack him much.
So the PGA this year at Quail Hollow in North Carolina, and South Dakota golf fans may remember that was the site of Tom Byram's one and only PGA Tour win back in the old Kemper Open back in 1989. And I forgot, I went back and looked at it a little. People forget the Kemper Open actually had one of the highest payouts of any non-major tournament back in the day. It was a pretty prestigious tournament to win back in those days.
Yeah, I certainly remember it. I can't, off the top of my head, claw back to any other real stats, but I definitely remember it being more marquee as opposed to now when, unfortunately, it's kind of one of those tournaments that you read about or hear about, and it's like, oh yeah, that used to be on the schedule, but now it's essentially extinct. So it's like, wait, was that a Web.com event? No, I mean that was a great event. It was a PGA Tour event. But anyway, all good. That time goes quickly. Almost 30 years now.
So the headlines coming in, we've touched on a couple of them. Of course, you got Hideki playing so well after his performance at Firestone coming in as one of the favorites. And you got Jordan Spieth trying to become the youngest player to complete that career Grand Slam. And, of course, anytime you could win 2 majors in a year, phenomenal as well. There's a couple of great storylines there.
Yeah, no question. The career Grand Slams are the big notes for both chance for Spieth here, and then Rory, of course, will have his chance at Augusta in April. Those are the 2 dominant storylines. But, you have Dustin Johnson, number 1 in the world. Can he get his game back together after an incredible run early this spring and win his second major? You have Ricky going for his first major. Ricky won his first ever PGA Tour event here 6 years ago, so it'd be kind of narrative street, so to speak, if he were to capture his first major here at Quail Hollow. And then you have guys like Jon Rahm, who's just burst onto the scene this season, just an incredible record so far, contending almost every single week that he plays. He's going to be a major story, and also can't look past major champs from earlier in the year, like Sergio at the Masters and Koepka, especially at the U.S. Open, who's maintained good form, played decent last week at Firestone too. Would not be surprised to see either of those contenders, especially Koepka. And then another guy I got to put out there is Phil Mickelson, who his track record here at Quail Hollow, which I will say real quick, Quail Hollow has actually been renovated since last year's Wells Fargo Championship significantly. The first 3 holes were dramatically changed. The first hole is now, it can play up to a 540-yard par 4, which is just crazy. They changed the first 3, and then they also changed hole 11, the green structure a little bit. But anyway, regardless, you still have a comfort level factor at the piece of property. Coming on site, the clubhouse is the same, the area is the same. And Phil's record here is just almost second to none. He doesn't have the victories to show for it, but has, I think, 6 top 5s at Quail Hollow in the time that it's been here, and a bunch of other near top 10s. So he has the course experience. It's hard to say because obviously the caddy change is a big thing, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Phil play well this week.
Before we get to the odds, let's talk about some of the pairings in the opening round. You got Spieth, Sergio, and Brooks Koepka for the first 2 rounds. You've got Rory playing alongside Ricky Fowler and Jon Rahm. You got Matsuyama playing alongside Ernie Els, who, by the way, will be teeing off in his 100th major tournament, and then Ian Poulter as well. What do you like about those groups?
Yeah, they're great groups, no question. They always do that at the PGA, where they put the first 3 major winners together, the winners of the Masters, U.S. Open, and British Open, and then they seem to always kind of put the cream of the crop in 2 or 3 other groups. And Rory, Ricky, and Rahm is an amazing group. If I had to follow one group, if I was out on the property, that'd probably be it. If I had to pick one player to win, probably be Ricky right now. I also liked him at the British, and he didn't quite come through. He still finished 22nd, but do really like Ricky this week. And Rory coming into form, finished kind of a quiet backdoor T4th at the British Open a few weeks ago, and then last week finished T5th and could not make a putt. He's hitting the ball incredibly. He led the field in driving last week. Rory has 2 victories here at Quail Hollow. He also captured his first ever PGA Tour event here 5 years ago, and then won in 2015 again. So he's got 2 victories here. He loves it. He actually was one of the first PGA Tour pros to play the first 3 holes before they were actually open to the members even. Wow. Johnny Harris, the club president, invited him down to play him, and Rory called them a quote-unquote firm handshake instead of a layup like they used to be. So they're a lot more difficult, but Rory's a guy to watch this week for sure. He's rounding into form, and if he can get the putter going, look out. And,
of course, one of the other storylines will be if Jon Rahm can avoid any rules controversies this week.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for one last week, but maybe he's saving it for another bigger stage like the PGA Championship. So, it's a somewhat new design, like I mentioned, 3 new holes, and they also have new grass. It's Bermuda grass instead of ryegrass that it used to be. So maybe he'll be able to find something just goofy with the grass change and the new layout change. And I wouldn't put it past him. He's had 2 of them in the last couple months, so maybe he'll make it a perfect trifecta.
All right, let's talk odds. Rory 7-1, Spieth 8-1, Dustin Johnson and Hideki are 12-1. Ricky is 15-1. And you said you kind of like Ricky out of that group.
Yeah, of those 2, I like Hideki and Ricky for sure. If I had to make 2 wagers, if I had to make just one, it'd be Ricky. Hideki would be hard to look past. Hideki's one of those where he's in such good form right now that if he doesn't win, I don't see him finishing out of the top 10. In fact, I'd really be surprised even if he's out of the top 5, which is crazy to say. But historically speaking, the PGA Championship is different than the other majors, where you usually get the hottest player coming in and getting it done, where, like, for example, 2 years ago, PGA Championship, Jason Day nearly wins the British Open at St. Andrews, misses a putt on the last hole to miss out on the playoff, then goes to Whistling Straits and dominates and wins. he was the hot player at the time. He also won the Canadian Open in the middle there. The year before, Rory won the British Open, won at Firestone, and then won the PGA. Last year was an exception. Jimmy Walker definitely came out of nowhere at Baltusrol, but usually the PGA is a very hot player because the setup is similar to what they see on a week-to-week basis, where the British Open is links golf, so that's different.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. Open is extremely difficult with long, rough, firm greens. That's different, and the Masters is just a unique thing in itself. So the PGA usually has the hottest golfer win or contend, so that's why I like a guy like Hideki who's just red hot to contend and maybe win. But like I said, if I had to pick one guy, it'd be Ricky.